Hey weebs, welcome to the part 2 of Hashira training arc. Before watching this video, do watch part 1 of Hashira training arc, link is in the description. Let's get started. After recovering from his intense battle with hantengu, Tanjiro joined the joint training effort. When he arrived, he was warmly welcomed by Tengen and his wives. Tanjiro amazed everyone by completing their training in just 10 days. He then went to Muichiro's place, where Muichiro praised him for his improved sword skills and wanted to help him increase his stamina. Muichiro taught Tanjiro how to relax and tense his muscles smoothly, which would enhance his endurance. Tanjiro learned this quickly, and Muichiro was so happy with his progress that he allowed him to move on to the next Hashira's training, even though it had only been 5 days. Next, Tanjiro met Mitsuri, the love Hashira, who greeted him warmly. They engaged in pleasant conversation before getting down to business. Mitsuri's training involved the men dressing up like ballerinas and constantly dancing to the music, where the main aim of this training is to increase flexibility. For this, she used her own strength to stretch each and every of her pupils. This phase of training prepared Tanjiro for the next challenge. The next Hashira to train Tanjiro was Obanai, the serpent Hashira. Unfortunately, their first meeting was not pleasant, as Obanai was quite angry on him, as Mitsuri had told him in letter that Tanjiro had fun with her training session. Tanjiro was then thrust into a unique ordeal created by Obanai. The room was filled with swordsmen bound on the floors and walls. Tanjiro had to deliver blows to Obanai, while carefully avoiding striking these helpless individuals. Obanai's strikes were swift and precise, resembling the movements of a snake as he weaves through the tied-up swordsmen. Despite facing numerous challenges, Tanjiro managed to improve his skills and avoid Obanai's attacks. After 4 days of intense training, he proved himself by cutting the hori worn by Obanai, which allowed him to move on to the next phase of his training with Tsunemi, the Vin Hashira. Along the way, he encountered his friend Zenitsu, who had fled from Tsunemi's training. However, Tsunemi caught up with Zenitsu and forced him back into training, even knocking him unconscious. Tanjiro, carrying his unconscious friend, engaged in a verbal exchange with Tsunemi. The training with Tsunemi involved constant slashing, resulting in injuries and exhaustion for Tanjiro. In this weakened state, Tanjiro witnessed a tense confrontation between Tsunemi and his little brother, Genya. Tsunemi denied having a brother and belittled Genya's abilities as a swordsman, even ordering him to quit the Demon Slayers. Genya, desperate for forgiveness, admitted to gaining fighting abilities by consuming demons. This revelation caught Tsunemi's attention and disappeared momentarily. Tanjiro, sensing danger, rushed to protect Genya from Tsunemi's potential attack, as Tsunemi was about to poke Genya's eyes. Tanjiro appears and pushed Genya to protect him from that fatal attack. Tanjiro confronted Tsunemi for attempting to kill his brother, but Tsunemi clarified that his goal was to defeat Genya to the point where he could no longer regenerate. However, if he quit being Demon Slayer, he will instantly forgive him. Tanjiro defended Genya, highlighting his role in defeating an upper-ranked demon, determined to protect his disowned brother. Tanjiro engaged in a fight with Tsunemi, while instructing Zenitsu to take Genya to safety. The chaos escalated, resulting in Tanjiro receiving a scolding from higher-ups and being banned from approaching the Vin Hashira. Unfortunately, Tanjiro couldn't mend the broken relationship between the Shinazugawa brothers. Tanjiro and Zenitsu heads towards the training ground of the Stone Hashira. They find Inosuke and other demon slayers training under a waterfall, greeted by the Stone Hashira meditating in an unusual manner. We see him meditating in the fire, with some logs and stone boulder on his shoulders, while holding toe squat position. He is truly like a beast. Tanjiro and Zenitsu are shocked to see such hellish training. Gyomei starts by explaining the importance of his training in developing a strong and stable body, which leads to accurate attacks and solid defense. His training consists of 3 seemingly simple tasks: enduring the force of a waterfall, carrying 3 heavy logs on your shoulder, and pushing a massive rock. However, he won't put them into fire as it is dangerous. Listening to this, Zenitsu pass out, to which Gyomei asks Tanjiro to throw him into the water. Zenitsu complains about the freezing waterfall. Inosuke, despite his hard work, was almost drowning. Tanjiro revives Inosuke and decides to train under the waterfall as well. We learn that Gyomei have given chance to trainees to help them focus and signal that they are still conscious. Later, while enjoying grilled fish with their fellow demon slayers, Inosuke claims that Gyomei, also known as the Rock Hashira, is the strongest member of their organization. Tanjiro agrees, noting that Gyomei has a distinct scent. Meanwhile, Zenitsu finds it hard to believe that Gyomei could move a boulder. But his disbelief grows when he witnesses Gyomei pushing an even larger rock. Eventually, Tanjiro and his friends complete the waterfall and log carrying training. But they still struggle to move the boulder. It's important to note that Gyomei's training is not forced on trainees, and anyone can choose to quit and give up by descending the mountain. Tanjiro and others talk about how Hashiras don't have any disciples as they find this training extremely difficult. Also, they see extreme difference between them and Hashira. So everyone runs away. 6 more days pass, and Tanjiro is still unable to move his boulder, despite his rigorous training. The mark he's been seeking has yet to appear. While pondering this situation, Tanjiro is approached by Genya, who notices that his scar is getting darker than before. Genya shares what happened to him after his fight with his brother. He was scolded by Gyomei and forbidden from getting near Tsunemi again. Genya also expresses gratitude towards Tanjiro for protecting him during the attack. Interestingly, Genya reveals that he was also part of the rock training and had moved some of the boulder. He mentions something called repetitive action and asks Tanjiro if he's aware of it. Genya explains that Gyomei isn't great at teaching, so one must observe him carefully to pick up his skill. Gyomei is seen secretly listening in on their conversation as they discuss repetitive action. Next, we see Demon Eyeballs surveilling a hunter, who turns out to be Nakime, spying on the Demon Slayer's whereabouts in the Infinity Castle. Nakime has mapped out 60% of their locations, but is still unaware of the Sun-conquering girl's whereabouts. She reports her findings to Muzan Kibutsuji, who is assisting Nakime attempting to locate Nezuko and Kagaya's mansion. Genya, who taught Tanjiro a technique called repetitive action, is a method that helps open up all of our senses. Though Genya himself couldn't use breathing techniques like Tanjiro, but he can do repetitive action. When Gyomei and Genya use this technique, they would recall their anger and painful memories, causing their heart rate and body temperature to rise. Genya said something similar might have happened when Mark first appeared on Tanjiro. However, Gyomei and Genya didn't have any marks, so they were confused. Repetitive actions heighten focus intensely at any given moment. Tanjiro wanted to learn how to maintain his mark indefinitely, so he started practicing this technique. He would repeatedly remember the faces of his loved ones and recite the words of Rengoku, who told him to keep his heart burning. This helped him reach the maximum level of concentration. At first, Tanjiro struggled with it, but through persistent practice, his body began to remember the process on how to activate that power. Eventually, he was able to push a large boulder slowly but surely. Seeing Tanjiro, Inosuke pushed the boulder too, by thinking about tempura, while Zenitsu felt left out, until he was distracted by a letter addressed to him. Tanjiro successfully completed the training set by the stone Hashira, moving the boulder. However, he became dehydrated from the taxing effort. Gyomei appeared and poured water on his mouth, and recognized him as a true swordsman, recalling Tanjiro's actions in the swordsmith village, when he prioritized the safety of the villagers over his own sister. But Tanjiro humbly credited Nezuko for making that decision, not himself. Hearing this, Gyomei realized how different Tanjiro is from other children. He believed that children are pure, weak and innocent. They tend to lie easily and are selfish, but Tanjiro's selflessness and purity stood out to him. Gyomei told Tanjiro a story about his past, before becoming a demon slayer. Gyomei took care of some children who didn't have any family in a temple. These children had no families, but in here they all used to help each other and lived like a family. Gyomei wanted this peaceful life to last forever. However, one night, one of the children broke the temple rules and didn't return before sunset. He encountered a demon and, in order to save himself, told the demon to attack Gyomei and the other 8 kids at the temple. The child extinguished the protective wisteria incense that Gyomei had lit and allowed the demon to enter the temple, resulting in the immediate death of 4 children. Gyomei tried to protect the remaining 4, but 3 of them didn't listen, ran away, and died. Only the youngest, Sayo, followed Gyomei's instructions and hid. Gyomei fought the demon relentlessly to protect Sayo, repeatedly punching its head until the sun came up. He managed to save Sayo, but when other people arrived at the scene to help, Sayo, who was still shocked by the incident, said something confusing. She said, "That man is a monster, he killed everyone." People assumed that Gyomei had murdered the children. Gyomei and others were unaware that Sayo was actually referring to the demon that had sneaked into the temple. The demon had burned up and left no evidence behind in the morning sunlight. Sayo, being just 4 years old, couldn't properly explain what had happened and couldn't dispel the suspicion that fell upon Gyomei. As a result, Gyomei was imprisoned and falsely charged with murder. If Kagaya had not intervened, he would have been executed. Ever since then, Gyomei has carried deep doubts and suspicions, believing that even the most virtuous person will reveal their true nature in the time of disaster. However, Tanjiro, unlike the others, never ran away and always remained honest, never telling lies. Recognizing Tanjiro as a special child, Gyomei promised to assist him so that Tanjiro would stay on the right path in life. While having a meal together with Tanjiro and Inosuke, Genya reminisces about how Gyomei took him as his disciple, even though he lacked the talent to be a powerful warrior and was resorting to eating demons. Gyomei introduced Genya to Shinobu, so she could assess his condition, but every time she saw him, she would make a displeased face and lecture him. Tanjiro, however, suggests that Shinobu was just concerned about Genya's well-being, and invites him to meet with Gyu after they finish eating. Genya declines, as he still haven't fully moved the boulder. While on his way to meet Gyu, Tanjiro comes across Zenitsu perched on a boulder, and expresses his worry since they haven't spoken in a while. Zenitsu tells him that he hasn't moved from that spot, because he has something important to take care of. Tanjiro then arrives at Gyu's location, and finds him and Sunemi engaged in a vigorous sword fight with wooden sword. Their movements are incredibly fast, but Tanjiro realizes that he can now follow their movements. The duel ends when both Gyu and Sunemi's swords break. After a clash of their breathing techniques, Sunemi suggests they continue fighting with their fists, but before they can, Tanjiro interrupts and asks if they are fighting over ohagi, which is, by the way, Sunemi's favorite food. This angers Sunemi even more, as they are not supposed to be near each other. After a while, Sunemi storms off, and Gyu mentions that the Hashira members sparring with each other. As a part of Hashira training, he also plans to secretly put some ohagi in a bag, and give it to Sunemi to improve their relationship. Although Tanjiro enthusiastically supports the idea, but in reality, it's just a plan to make them fight again. As Sunemi angrily walks away from Gyu's place, he notices something following him and grabs it. It was an eye from one of Nakime's demons. At the Ubuyashiki's mansion, we see Kagaya greeting his visitor Muzan Kibutsuji. The outcome of Kagaya and Muzan's meeting remains to be seen. That's all for today's episode, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to never miss another update. Link for the part 1 of Hashira training will be in the description below. Do check out. And also, this was the full Hashira training arc. Stay tuned for more such content.